speak on tonight.
Okay.
Not file.
So,
That's the one that's reflected with Lower Mills and took it with me.
good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Ionella Chamber. Thanks to all the guests from the community who are here to make public testimony. My name is Liz Braden, District 9 City Councillor. I am the Chair of the Boston City Council Committee on Redistricting. I am joined by my colleagues, Councillor Murphy, Councillor Flynn, Councillor Mejia, Councillor Baker, Councillor Louis-Jean. Oh, I should give you all your full titles. Councillor Murphy, Councillor at Large, Councillor Flynn, District 2, Councillor Mejia, Councillor at Large, Councillor Baker, District 3, Councillor Louis-Jean at Large, Councillor Worrell, District 4, Councillor Flaherty at Large. That's everyone for now. This meeting has been recorded. It is being live streamed at boston.gov/city-council-tv and broadcast on Xfinity Channel 8, RCN Channel 82, FiOS Channel 964. Written comments may be sent to the committee email at ccc.redistricting@boston.gov and will be made part of the record and available to all councillors. The purpose of this meeting is to hear public testimony from residents regarding redistricting. If you wish to sign up for public testimony here in the chamber, please sign in on the sheet near the door. If you are looking to testify virtually, please email Sean Pack at shane.pack@boston.gov for the link, and your name will be added to the list. The committee has received a letter of absence from Councillor Bach, which will be read into the record. Chair Liz Braden. Dear Chair Braden, please excuse my absence from today's meeting to hear public testimony regarding redistricting from our Boston residents. The input of residents in this process is of the utmost importance, as is the testimony of community groups concerned with promoting the intent of the Voting Rights Act to ensure that communities of colour are empowered by our district lines to elect candidates of their choice. I have been listening carefully to feedback from constituents in District 8 and the rest of the city about their redistricting priorities. I regret that a long scheduled absence from the city this evening prevents me from attending this session. I will review the recording and look forward to the next steps in the process. Redistricting materials are continuously being updated at the committee website at boston.gov/redistricting, including a link to watch recordings of past committee meetings. At the request of the committee, this afternoon we received a memorandum outlining the basic principles of redistricting criteria prepared by Attorney Jeffrey Weiss, an adjunct professor and senior fellow at the New York Law School and a specialist in legislative redistricting. Attorney Weiss is being retained by the Corporation Council as outside counsel for redistricting and will provide a 10 to 15 minute presentation this evening outlining the content of the memo. I will read the letter from Corporation Council attached to the memo, and let's see where we are. Where's the letter? Here it is. Dear Chair Braden and Vice Chair Worrell, attached hereto, please find a short memo setting forth basic principles of the criteria that the City Council should or may consider when redrawing City Council districts. I am sharing this with the Committee on Redistricting based on a request of the Chair to have a short list of guideposts that the Committee must be cognizant of as it does its work. This memo was prepared by Jeffrey Weiss, Adjunct Professor and Senior Fellow at the New York School of Law and a specialist in legislative redistricting. He is a co-editor of the National Conference of State Legislatures 2020 Redistricting Handbook, Mr. Weiss is identified as a resource in consultation with the Chair's office, and my office contracted with Mr. Weiss to utilise his expertise in this field. In addition to this memorandum, my office will utilise Mr. Weiss's expertise to help respond to additional inquiries from the committee or the council. Any questions from councillors will be for Attorney Weiss will be collected through the Chair and submitted through Corporation Council. Another set of questions has been submitted by the committee chair and a response is being prepared. At this time, we're going to be joined by Attorney Weiss. Welcome, Attorney Weiss.
Hi, good afternoon. Am I coming through okay?
We turn up your volume a little.
Sure, let me do that. How is this?
That sounds good.
Okay, great. Well, it's a pleasure to be with you this afternoon. I'll take a few minutes to walk through the criteria that will guide you in the line drawing process to redraw the council districts. You're guided essentially by federal law and the city charter. The Boston City Charter in Section 18 has some very specific language on what you're required to consider. And I'll just read very briefly from Section 18. It requires that districts shall be compact and shall contain as nearly as may be an equal number of inhabitants as determined by the most recent state decennial census, shall be composed of contiguous existing precincts, and shall be drawn with the view toward preserving the integrity of existing neighborhoods. Well, first off, Massachusetts no longer uses a state census, so you're required to use the federal decennial census data that was reported last December. And to spell out the criteria in the city charter, the first is population equality, and that derives from U.S. Supreme Court precedents that sets a 10% basic limit from the size of the largest district to the size of the smallest district. It's called population deviation. And in Boston, based on the 2020 census, this means that the ideal district size is 75,071 residents. So that allows for a plus 5% or minus 5% deviation up or down from that 75,000 person average. And then within those ranges, any deviations from 75,071 people needs to be based on an effort also balancing the other criteria that I'm going to cover. So population equality, one person, one vote, that's the overriding factor that emanates from the U.S. Constitution for the need that each district be reasonably equal in population to every other district, to wit, one person, one vote. The second consideration falls under both the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and the Federal Voting Rights Act. The Voting Rights Act must respect minority voters when developing a new plan. The Voting Rights Act prohibits any kind of voting qualification or practice or procedure that results in a denial or abridgment of any minority citizens to any citizen's right to vote on account of race, color, or status as a member of a language minority group. And in essence, the Act covers blacks, Hispanics, Asians, Native American Indians, and Pacific Islanders. So those are the different racial and ethnic groups that the Voting Rights Act covers. In the Voting Rights Act, we have a Section 2 part that specifically prohibits vote dilution when votes are dispersed or so-called cracked among districts, making them ineffective voting blocks if they overly disperse residents in a way that doesn't enable them to elect their preferred candidate. On the opposite side, you can have overly concentrated districts or packed districts, which create excessive majorities of minority voters within a district, preventing them from electing candidates in neighboring districts. So you want to avoid packing too many people in a district or cracking too few people in a district. The Voting Rights Act requires the creation of what I'll call effective minority districts, where you can show that the minority group comprises at least 50% plus of a district's population. Second, you've got to demonstrate that the minority voters vote cohesively or for the same kinds of candidates. And third, and most importantly, you have to be able to demonstrate that if there is a significantly high level of racially polarized voting, and where the white voters vote as a bloc to prevent minority voters from electing their preferred candidates, then the Voting Rights Act steps in and requires you to create an effective minority district. So 50% plus minority voting age population and a very high level of racially polarized voting. Now, that's the statutory Voting Rights Act. On the other hand, you have the U.S. Constitution's 14th Amendment that prevents something we call racial gerrymandering. And that's where you're drawing districts that are drawn based on race and race alone, that create excessive populations of minority voters beyond that which is needed to elect the minority community's preferred candidates. So it's necessary to comply both with the 14th Amendment and the Voting Rights Act requirements by avoiding any kind of discriminatory intent and discriminatory effect of minimizing or canceling out the voting strength of members of a racial or language minority group. We use highly specific racial voting analysis to demonstrate whether or not the minority vote is diluted, whether you have block voting, and also whether race is being used excessively, where it could run into a violation of the 14th Amendment to avoid what's called racial gerrymandering. It's very important to remember that districts must be evaluated based on local voting patterns and population data on a district-by-district basis. So we have the two federal requirements of one person, one vote, and respecting minority voting rights to avoid minority vote dilution in areas of very high racially polarized voting as required by the Voting Rights Act, and also to avoid excessive use of race, or as they call it, race being used as the predominant factor for race and no other reason but race alone, where you end up with districts that pack too many minority voters into a district. So there's sort of a balancing act you have to do, and that's something I look forward to working with you on to make sure that the law is properly complied with. Now we go on to the other city charter criteria. The first is that districts be compact. And the compactness means that districts should have a minimum distance between all parts of a district subject to the other criteria. And political scientists have developed several different kinds of mathematical models to measure compactness, so you know whether a plan is first compact or not by itself, and to also enable you to compare competing plans for which plan is most compact. The next criteria is that districts be contiguous, that all parts of a district should be connected geographically at some point with the rest of the district. And according to the Boston City Charter, all districts must contain contiguous election precincts. And the last consideration required by the city charter is the preservation of neighborhoods, that neighborhoods must be given priority in drawing districts that respect the boundaries of Boston's recognized districts, of which there are about, I think, 25 or 26. So those are your basic requirements under federal law and under city law that you've got to follow. Now, there are other non-required criteria. The courts generally refer to these as the traditional redistricting criteria that are not required by federal or city law, but are things you can consider. And the first is one that's very popular with the public, called communities of interest. And a community of interest would include neighborhoods that have similar geographical areas where residents have common demographic interests that could be socioeconomic, religious, academic, business, medical, or some other recognizable characteristic that people identify with. Communities of interest might not follow actual political subdivision boundaries, and it's important to note in balancing criteria, if you choose to consider communities of interest, that Boston's charter prioritizes recognized neighborhoods as a higher priority, so that if you're asked to draw districts based on communities, you've got to give priority to the established neighborhood boundaries first. Another criteria often used is a ban on partisanship, which is to not favor or disfavor a political party, a candidate, or incumbent. And then the last criteria that's often employed is to maintain the cores of existing districts, using your current boundaries as a determinant for helping make a least change as might be necessary. Because the bottom line is that you're trying to develop a new plan that takes the current districts, overlays the new population data from the 2020 census. You look to see first which districts are over or underpopulated, make those corrections, but as you do that, you're being cognizant of minority voting rights, whether you are diluting any minority voting strength situations, or avoiding any kind of excessive use of race to pack a district and run into a constitutional violation. Then you want to make sure that your districts are relatively compact, that they're contiguous, that they preserve neighborhood boundaries. And you may want to also consider, but might not be required to, look at the other criteria. You can't please everybody. You can't always address each criteria on its own and then not satisfy all of the others. There's always a balancing act that you're going to have to keep in mind. So this is a process that takes place once every decade. There are people who are pleased, not pleased, but it'll be your situation to make a decision based on population numbers and the law and public input to see what people want and where the new lines need to go. So that's my maybe 10-minute overview. I'd be glad to, I guess, answer questions later and look forward to working with you moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Weiss. And we will, and undoubtedly, we will probably have further questions which will come through our Corporation Council. So thank you so much for being here this afternoon. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, who's all here? So this is a public hearing. Many of our council colleagues have been are here. I would, out of respect for the fact that so many members of the public are here, we will take public testimony first and break it up and go back and forward. So if that's acceptable, we will do our best to keep everyone on time. I'm setting a time limit of 3 minutes. I'd ask everyone to be disciplined in keeping to that, because everyone has to have an opportunity to have their voices heard, and that includes 3 minutes for my colleagues. So I hope we can get through this in, as well as we can, and we're here as long as we need to be to listen to community comments this evening. We're also going to be taking community comments via Zoom. So we will start with taking some comments from the floor. The first up is Joe McDonald from West End Civic Association, and then that will be followed by Larry DeCara, and then Karen Chin. So if you folks could get lined up, we'll take 3 of you, and then we'll take some council comments.
Maureen Feeney's here also. She's an elected, so she would
And yes,
step the line.
Yes, thank you. And we've also been joined by Clerk Maureen Feeney, so we'll ask you to make some comments as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My name is Joe McDonald. I'm the president of the West End Civic Association. I think we've just heard that the main 4 criteria we need for dividing the districts are equality of population, compactness, obeying the federal laws on the subject, and finally preserving the communities, that is, keeping communities all within one district. We all know we have one perfect district, and that's Alston-Brighton, because it meets every criteria, and all the plans agree that Councillor Breeden has a perfect district. But Councillor Murphy has also discovered that there's a second perfect district. You don't need to copy down the numbers. I provided the clerk with the papers on which these numbers are provided. If you combined all the precincts in East Boston, all the precincts in Charlestown, all the precincts in the North End, you get a perfect district. It is only 0.05% over population. It is completely composed of actual communities with civic organizations that function. It is compact. That's a great thing. I think we should give Councillor Coletta the same bragging rights as Councillor Breeden and saying she has a perfect district. And that way, you can take the West End as a whole, you can take Beacon Hill as a whole, you're still preserving the districts. I'm not going to give you any advice on what to do south of the Common because it's not within my expertise. All I'm saying is you can create perfect districts north of the Common. And unfortunately, 2 of the plans that were presented to you split the West End in 2, add half of the West End to Councillor Coletta's district. That is, they add a precinct to a district that's already overpopulation. I don't see how on earth any rational person would want to do that. The thing to do is to keep the West End, the 3 precincts of the West End, in one district. And that's easily done by creating that perfect district of just the East Boston, Charlestown, and the North End. It's very difficult for a civic organization when we're split between 2 councillors, because an action on one side of a street may cause difficulties on the other side of the street, and we have to involve both councillors. Keep the West End united. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's get my clock set. Next up, Larry DeCara. I'm doing three people for 3 public persons first, and then I'm going to a council. Oh, good afternoon. Welcome.
Nice to see you. It's great to be here. As I told the council president, I'm glad it's now handicapped accessible. I didn't know that when you were proposing it before, but it's important to me. So for the record, Lawrence DeCara, 111 Perkins Street, Ward 10, Precinct 9. I've looked at these maps. I've looked at the history as the council has drawn maps over a period of decades. And there are certain criteria which have been used quite successfully. And the professor, I think, touched upon all of them. These districts are not districts which are outsized. They are not districts which pack and crack. They are not districts which look funny. And time again, the districts have maintained communities as best as can be done, understanding that it's almost impossible to satisfy everybody. So most of the folks in Mattapan are in 02126, and they're in the same council district. Obviously, Charlestown, East Boston, they're not easily accessible. You've got to go over bridges or in tunnels to get there. So they have stuck together. But there's been a lot of maps that have done a bit of a number on Dorchester, and that's where I grew up. So it means a lot to me. I've marched up and down Dort Ave in that parade more times than I can count. And those communities have that as a spine. And it goes back to Sam Bass Warner's book, The Streetcar Suburbs, where he talks about the streetcar lines which were created in the city around the time of the Civil War. I wasn't around that long ago. And those were the ways that people traveled. And there were streetcars that went down Dort Ave, streetcars that went down Blue Hill Avenue, went down Center Street to Jamaica Plain and West Roxbury, then a bunch of farmers. And that's how the city developed, with storefronts being developed along there. So it's really important that these communities that are on either side of Dort Ave, people on either side of the Red Line who work together in civic associations going back to the time of Kit Clark when I was here in the council back in the 70s. They even named a building after her at UMass. It's a great lady, a Protestant and a Republican. She was tougher than most of the guys in Dorchester, I can tell you that. And we in Dorchester always work together in civic organizations. And the civic organizations usually meet in the basements of churches because people know where they are and the rent is probably free. Cedar Grove used to meet at the old Dorchester Post, and then I think they started to charge rent and they moved to St. Brendan's. And these are communities of interest under any criteria of the law, and something that this council, whose role I do not envy in the next couple of weeks, has to take into account. I know Councilor Feeney's here. She represented that district. Councilor Byrne, who I grew up with, represented that district. Councilor Baker represents that district now. And take a look at those maps, 83, 93, right along. They've kept those neighborhoods which have always worked together and kept them together. And I think that's an important criteria for the council to consider.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll be playing with my clock. Next up, Karen Chen.
Thank you. Good evening, councillors. My name is Karen Chen. I'm the executive director with the Chinese Progressive Association. The Chinese Progressive Association is at 28 Ash Street in Chinatown. We're at District 2. You know, District 2, as you know, is overpopulated by around, 13,000 people, and our members testify in the last hearing. So I really appreciate the councillors actually taking their testimony into consideration in thinking about, new approaches to the map. In terms of keeping, Chinatown and South End together, and also keeping a balance between South Boston and the rest of the district. And then, I think that while, our most important concern is District 2, we also overall see why we think that it's still also important for, other communities of color have fair representation or opportunities for representation. So I just want to say a few things. I know that there's a number of meetings that are happened, and I want to say that, we think that Councillor Breeden's, map is going in, the right direction, and there was a meeting yesterday with the NAACP. It's also, going in, it's the right approach in thinking about balance and representation. For example, in the NAACP map, we don't want to, overpack Black communities in District 4, but meanwhile keeping District 7 and District 4, as legacy, districts for the Black community, but also creating opportunities in other districts for fair representation. So I'm just going to leave my testimony here, and I want to continue work with the council and really thinking about how do we ensure that all of our communities are represented fairly and doesn't violate the Voting Rights Act. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Council. Now, in order to take some of our council colleagues, I will hand Councillor Worrell, our co-chair. Would you like to say a few words, and then we'll take Councillor Murphy. And 3 minutes max for all of our councillors. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to everyone in attendance, and thank you to everyone who's been involved and also testifying online. We want to make sure that this process This important process that's done every 10 years. It's done rooted in the Voting Rights Act and also with community input. And that's why we're all here today, is take the input of the community, listen and learn from all of our neighbors, our constituents, on how to draw this map. So for me, today is about listening, learning, and taking that feedback into consideration when we're drawing these maps. So thank you all for attendance, and thank you to the City of Boston for your engagement on this process. And everyone here, please spread the word and let the whole city know that this process is happening, which is an important tool that's going to be here for 10 years. So thank you, everyone in attendance. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Worrell. Councillor Murphy, you have the floor.
And I'm happy to be here. Been attending all of these redistricting meetings, and it's great to have a public meeting tonight and see that some people, like Karen Chen, who has spoken already, you've been at all of them. Thank you for your advocacy, and also seeing new faces. And we don't have much time, as many of you know, but I'm glad to see that more people have come to share their opinion of the different maps that we have started to share out. And I know many of you have seen some of the maps that are out there. For myself, it was a starting point to start the conversation, knowing that we needed to decrease in some districts and move in others, but making sure that we're keeping the historical districts the way they were. That was one of the main things I really cared about. And I did say this at the meeting the other day, so in my last few seconds here, I'll just remind everyone that when we were doing the research in our office about the historical 9 districts that make up the city, District 1 has been Charlestown, East Boston in the North End. District 2 has historically been Chinatown, downtown, South Boston in the South End, which has now, in the last few years, included the South Boston waterfront, which has made their population go over. District 3 has always been just Dorchester. District 4 has been Mattapan, Dorchester, Rosendale, and JP. District 5, Hyde Park and Rosendale. 6 has been JP and West Roxbury. 7 has historically been Roxbury, South End, and parts of North Dorchester. And District 8 is made up of Back Bay, Beacon Hill, Fenway, Kenmore, Mission Hill in the West End. And District 9, like you mentioned earlier, is that perfect district of Alston, Brighton, outside of Kenmore Square. So hoping that as we as colleagues work together as a team, but also hearing the input tonight and any future public hearings will help us make this decision, knowing that not everyone will be happy, but we have to do the best we can so that we come out of this on the other end where the city is better for it. So thank you, Chair, and I look forward to giving the time back to all of the public testimony tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Murphy. I just also want to recognise elected officials. We've already heard from Councillor Larry DeCara, former City Councillor. Clerk Maureen Feeney is here, Representative Dan Hunt, and Senator Diane Wilkerson. Thank you. You're very welcome, and nice to have you here. We will now take some virtual testimony. Jordan Long. Who's Longo? Oh, and Councillor Arroyo has joined us. Thank you. So first up, we will have Jordan Long-Ever, and Miniard Culpepper will be in the line next. So first of all, Jordan.
Good evening, and thank you for this hearing. My name is Jordan. I live in Fields Corner, Ward 16, Precinct 1, which is currently in D4. All 3 proposals right now have all of Fields Corner being added to D3. Fields Corner is a very diverse area, racially and economically, and I'm concerned that adding it all to a district that will still have a white vast majority, even after adding Fields Corner, will not best meet our needs. Of particular concern is the type and amount of housing being added here in our immediate future as the city grows. So many of Boston's best tradespeople live in D3 and are well established there. So building projects of any home type are how they make their livings. Developers are proposing so many high-end projects all over with precious little affordability. And D3 does not have the same affordability needs as Fields Corner. So as people here fight to keep their homes and communities intact as we grow our city, if those needs are vastly outnumbered by others in our district whose needs and interests directly contradict ours, we won't have a chance. The result here would be a lot more displacement and a lot less diversity. I'm sure Boston wasn't growing at the rates we are now when redistricting practices were set. But I do see that redistricting is done to preserve communities and neighborhoods. So I hope you will add these factors to your considerations as you decide how best to preserve our neighborhoods and communities as we grow our city. Thank you for your time and for all of your hard work.
Thank you for your testimony, Jordan. Next up, Miniard Culpepper. Okay, Lisa Beatman. Lisa?
I believe I'm on now.
Yes, you're on. Welcome.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Lisa Beatman. I'm one of the co-chairs of the Mount Hope Canterbury Neighborhood Association, which is in Eastern Rosendale. Our neighborhood is literally on the other side of the tracks, the commuter rail tracks along Hyde Park Avenue, and we abut Mattapan and Hyde Park. I want to, I want to support the overall objectives of this committee. And I am here, like I believe many of these other neighborhood associations, to talk about consequences that some of the kind of greater good decision-making can have, and can have collateral damage on very specific neighborhoods. Our neighborhood is currently 75% people of color. It is the demographics of it and the income levels and all are quite different from the rest of Rosendale. In many ways, we are more similar to the Mattapan and to the part of Hyde Park that we are abut. Cummins, American Legion, and so I'm here. I sent a one-line letter in, which was that I personally support the map that the chair and vice chair have proposed, primarily because I think that may serve our particular sub-neighborhood better. Our neighborhood group is meeting this Thursday. So I'm also here to say that this process really needs to give enough time so that more constituents are able to meet and discuss this and look at what's best for our neighborhoods. I understand the idea of maybe Rosendale, that if we were to, because we're on the block for redistricting right now, we're in District 4. One of the things stated is that if we were, redistricted to 5, then, that would make Rosendale whole, and that is true. And in theory, that could be really beautiful. In practice, over many years, our neighborhood is not always served well when we are lumped in with the rest of Rosendale. So I'm not here with a very specific solution, but I do want to give one example, which is that the American Legion corridor, has been very underinvested and neglected for many years. That's beginning to turn around. There have been just about all of the development projects that have been approved here, and some of them are very dense, have been rentals. And I know that our new and current city councilor, is very committed to affordable homeownership. And so that's just one specific example where we really, we need support, we need representation that will help our border neighborhood have, improved quality of life. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. So let's see. We'll go to one of my colleagues, Councillor Flynn and Councillor Mejia. Councillor Flynn, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to Vice Chair Worrell for your continued work and to my colleagues for their work for this process. I know that we are here to listen to public testimony, so I want to give time for our constituents to speak as well, so I will be brief. As I have mentioned before, some of the principles that are important to me include compactness, so that we have a minimum distance between all parts of a constituency. Ideally, a district would be a circle or a square. Preservation of core of prior districts as well to the extent possible. We should maintain districts as previously drawn contiguous. With that in mind, it is critically important to me that parts of South Boston that are currently in District 2 remain in District 2. That means 7-5, 7-6 would need to remain in District 2. I think South Boston should stay as one. Under preservation of core of prior districts, I would also like to maintain public housing as much as I possibly can. I think I represent the largest number of residents living in public housing than any district city councilor, and I'm proud of that. And I probably have the most diverse staff as well on the Boston City Council. Of the six staff members I have, 5 are women of color, and they're immigrants, and they speak many languages. That's why I need to make sure I advocate for my district, because I intentionally wanted to make sure immigrants had a say in my office so I'm able to effectively communicate. Preservation of communities of interest, keeping areas where residents have a common interest together. That is important to me, as I have emphasized again and again. We need to keep the Chinese community together in District 2. We need to consider having Castle Square remain in the district as well. Villa Victoria is also important. Cathedral is also important, which probably should stay in the district. I would like to have more discussions on that with my colleagues, but that's also an important area. The Hispanic community, the AAPI community as well. I'd also like to retain and keep intact the neighborhoods of South Boston that I highlighted. Castle Square is important. It has a large Chinese community. Chinatown, majority of the Wharf District, the Harbor Towers. I think all of us agree on these principles, and I look forward to working with all of you on these issues. We're talking about diversity, and that's what I've done for the last 5 years as a city council, making sure that I have the most diverse office of any city councilor. Again, 5 out of 6 of my colleagues are women of color, and I think that's an important criteria as we work on this issue. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, President Flynn. Councillor Mejia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Vice Chair. And thank you to the public for being here tonight. I am grateful to see the richness and the diversity of this great city. I would just like to, I'm listening to the professor who was talking earlier, and he mentioned communities of interest. He mentioned social, religious, and specific characteristics to communities, and while I really do appreciate that as we continue to move the conversation forward, I just want to remind us as a council that the work that we're doing within this space is making sure that we are looking at race and language as we continue to move through this process. So I just want to anchor that again for those who are listening in and paying attention, what this exercise calls for in this moment in time. And while I have the mic, and I have my time still, I will just say that this is our moment here in the city of Boston. And this only happens every 10 years. And if we don't get this right, then we're going to ask ourselves what we could have done differently. And I'd like to say that when we think about what we could do differently is really recognize and understand that when it comes to anything that deals with race here in the city of Boston, there's always tension. And that's okay to sit in that tension and to be uncomfortable with it. And we have to be courageous to have conversations that make us feel uncomfortable. And let me just tell you that being a city councilor at large, having this discussion and recognizing that you're not going to make everyone happy, but I'm not here to do that. I'm here to do the work and maintain the guiding principles of what this process is all about. So I am encouraging my colleagues as we continue to go through this process to recognize that at the end of the day, you get what you get by who you elect in terms of your services, in terms of who shows up, in terms of what happens in your community or doesn't. And that has a lot to do with this moment that we're talking about here today. So with that, I'm going to yield the rest of my time because I'm here to listen and learn. And I really do appreciate you all being here this evening. Thank you.
Right on the button. Thank you, Councillor Mejia. Get my thing to stop. Next up, Steve Bickerton, followed by John O'Toole.
Good afternoon. My name is Steve Bickett, and I'm here to represent the Cedar Grove Civic Association, of which I'm the president. I'm actually the second generation of Bickertons to be the president of the association, following the footsteps of my father, Steve Sr., who was president from 93 to 96. I've lived in Dorchester and District 3 all my life, but in some of these maps, that'll no longer be the case. We in Cedar Grove are against any map that divides our community. We congratulate our neighbors in Fields Corner, as many of the maps provide the unification of the Vietnamese community in that neighborhood. That's a long time coming, and it should have happened during the redistricting process 10 years ago. There's no reason for that positive step to come at the expense of our community a mile to the south. Our association wants to be heard when we say enough is enough. This is the second time in 2 years that a redistricting map has attempted to divide us along arbitrary lines, the first time being the proposed Senate map last year, which grouped the western precincts of our community with towns like Avon and West Bridgewater. We spoke out then, and we're speaking out now again to keep our community whole. We're a cohesive community bound by common interests, a central business district, and for nearly 40 years, a common city councilor, the District 3 city councilor. We're a community of unique concerns and issues, and we deserve to remain united. This should not be a political process. Redistricting should be about the stated principles, including the preservation of neighborhoods, as Attorney Weiss just affirmed. But it seems as though our community is suddenly in the political crosshairs of some, and is caught in the middle of political disagreements over who performed well where in recent elections. That's not acceptable. Things are being done to us without us. We do matter, we want to be heard, and we want to remain united as a community around our neighborhood organizations, business district, and the District 3 City Councilor. We insist that our community of interest be preserved in accordance with the principles of redistricting. We are a community of interest despite what some may say. And with Dorchester having a 3.9% veteran population, nearly double the state's population of 4%. As you know, United States military veterans are a protected class under the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and the proposed arbitrary division along unnatural lines weakens their voice at the ballot box. We also insist that one of the cores of our district, whether you call it Adams Village, Cedar Grove, or St. Brendan's, be preserved, as is the committee's stated mission. Please note that St. Brendan's is not purely a religious designation. It's a long-standing tradition that we in Dorchester, regardless of religious affiliation, identify ourselves by the parish we live in. Dividing District 3 and 4 through the middle of Adams Village or St. Brendan's Parish would be like dividing Roxbury through the middle of Nubian Square. It just wouldn't be right, and neither is this. We insist that Ward 17, Precinct 13, and Ward 16, Precincts 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 remain in District 3, and that any proposed map that doesn't keep our community united be voted down. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Perfect. Okay. John O'Toole, you have the floor.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Good evening. My name is John O'Toole. I'm a lifelong resident of Dorchester. My children are fourth-generation Dorchester residents who still remain in the city. I was a former president of Cedar Grove Civic Association from the time periods between 1993 and 2008, and I remain active in my community. I got involved in my community nearly 30 years ago. We have seen so many positive changes in our Dorchester neighborhood in that time, much of it due to the collaborative work of Ward 16's very active civic associations and their dedicated elected officials. I must say that I was surprised to see the new redistricting plans, and I can see no compelling reason to divide our communities and their elected representation. And I think it's safe to say that the current District 3 is arguably the most diverse district in the city. There's been so much work that's been accomplished by the teamwork that time does not permit to list it here, all the great work that's been done in District 3. But I will point out as one example the Neponset River Reservation and Bike Path and Park System. This was over 30 years of blood, sweat, and tears by the people and their elected officials of District 3, and more specifically of Ward 16, which is a gem that all the citizens of Boston enjoy. And it connects all of the communities along the Neponset River from Port Norfolk all the way down to Mattapan. The only thing that I see that the proposed changes is to divide the oldest civic association in the city, which is 88 years old, and to dilute the voices of this vital residential and business community. On the city's website, it says that it wants the maps to be fair, including preservation of neighborhoods and communities. How does the current proposal support this? I urge the committee to reconsider the proposal and approve a plan that keeps Ward 16 and Ward 17 Precinct 13 intact. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Next, I'll take Councillor Baker, followed by Councillor Louis-Jean. Councillor Baker, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's been a lot said on this in this whole exercise around District 3. So I've actually put together a map, Madam Chair, that we don't have a meeting until next week. So I've shared it with your office. I've shared it with the chair's office. Basically, what this map does. The first thing that I heard over and over and over was keep 8-1 and 9-1 together in District 2 to continue that Chinese presence in District 2. I heard over and over to let's try to unite the Vietnamese community, which would be in my district, District 3. That's 16-1, 16-3. In this map, I'm already an opportunity district, a legacy district, what you want to call it. I would argue that if District 4 and District 7 are legacy, let's look at District 3 here. We're already an opportunity district. I would call it a coalition district. I was that coalition candidate that went into Ward 16. I'm not from Ward 16, but went into Ward 16, peeled enough votes there, had Vietnamese callers for months, 8 hours a day calling the Vietnamese community, same for the Cape Verdean community. We bring Bay Village under Kenzie's district here. We try and unite as much as we possibly can with the South End in District 2. And again, minimal changes to the baseline maps. We're respecting neighborhoods. You heard from Ward 16, St. Brendan's, St. Anne's. District 3 is the district of the parishes. What I would like more than anything is to gain St. Brendan's, St. Greg's, all of what I had last time. So when redistricting last time, I lost 3 or 4 opponents through redistricting, most of them coming out of those precincts that were in St. Greg's. I tried to do the math on it. It didn't work because I'm respecting this new map here. I want to respect my colleagues in South Boston. We'll stay away from South Boston. 8-1 was something that I was planning on trying to get, but to respect the Chinese community, that stays there. This is about boundaries here and historical boundaries. Everybody wants to come to Boston and make their political bones in Boston because it all started here. This is a way for us to respect our histories, respect our parishes. Those parishes are political boundaries that these maps were drawn on. I would like to share this with the whole crowd. Not sure if it should be filed or not yet. People should look at it, chew on it. I want to show that picture right there. That's Dave Dupree and the Hustlers. That's my brother John in 1968, blind, 17 years old, playing with an all-black band up through Dorchester, up through Roxbury. That's what a Dorchester family was doing in 1968 when the rest of the city was on fire, the country was on fire. That's what a Dorchester family was doing. Their son was playing with Dave Dupree and the Hustlers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Councillor Louis-Jean, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I thank everyone for being here. This is an important part of the redistricting process, hearing from community. Because as I've said before, and I'll say it again, voters choose their electeds, not the other way around. Electeds don't choose who the people are who vote for them. And so hearing from all of you and hearing your comments are an important part of this process. As an attorney, I've worked on a number of redistricting cases, and I can tell you that these processes are not easy and that not everyone is going to be satisfied, but we know what the requirements are, and we know there's compactness, there's contiguity, and there's compliance with the Voting Rights Act and making sure that we are not doing anything to dilute the vote of voters of color and helping to build political power for groups that have been historically ignored and disenfranchised through the process, which is why I'm heartened to see the efforts and the attempts in these maps really help build power where it hasn't really existed, and to help build the Asian American political power and Chinese community political power, and also to preserve the districts that we have where voters of color are able to elect the candidate of their choice. And so in complying with the Voting Rights Act, we always have to be thinking about, are voters able, and are voters of color able to elect the candidate of their choice, and are we creating opportunity districts where we're able to ensure that that can happen? And so we have this obligation, and it's also a moral requirement to think about the groups that have been left out of the political process to comply with the Voting Rights Act, and also to make sure that we are not engaging in any racial gerrymandering. And so we are bound by those two facts, and by understanding that we have not always done a good job of empowering communities of color. We have not always done a good job of empowering language minorities as required under the Voting Rights Act. And so I'm heartened by maps and configurations of maps that do that work, that look at what districts can be further strengthened as opportunity districts. And I look forward to continuing hearing from all of you, because there are things that you all are bringing to the fore that we haven't considered or that we haven't thought of. And so it's an important part of this process for us to think about how we're moving forward while thinking about the interests that you all bring to the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Louis-Jean. Is Councillor reset? Now we'll go back to for public testimony. Who have we got on virtual? We'll take a virtual testimony from Carla Stovall. Carla? Okay. Carla?
Hi, hello.
Welcome. You have the floor.
Thank you. Good afternoon, councillors and redistricting committee. Thank you for having this space set up so that we can continue to focus on the important discussion around the redistricting process that we are all undertaking. My name is Carla Stovall, and I'm a member of New England United for Justice. New England United for Justice represents community residents who come from all walks of life, primarily in the Black and Caribbean neighborhoods of Dorchester and Mattapan. 95% of our work in the city is focused on D3, D4, and D5 neighborhoods. We are one of many partners focused on civic engagement across our communities, engaging the residents on a variety of issues and concerns around housing, worker efforts, childcare, neighborhood concerns, and other community power. We do recognize there are a variety of maps being drafted, some by elected officials and some by community and neighborhood voices. This is such a difficult but timely and sensitive process for all of us. Our organization has had a chance to review the maps that the committee has put forward, and we like some of the recommendations being provided. Thank you to the committee for their work on this. We can see that you heard community voices and have a good starting place for us to look at. As a community, we have also been looking at suggested maps shaped by the NAACP and a unified group of residents from neighborhoods that are primarily Black, Latinx, and API. We believe the recommendations from the community in the NAACP map allows the work of the committee to go even further. We support the idea of expanding D4 by including key parts of Dorchester precincts from D3 into D4. This allows the community to expand its voting power, community population, and balance the number of voters across the city. It also allows neighborhoods to remain intact while remaining strong in our collective identity as Dorchester while protecting other key communities in the city. I'm not here as a redistricting expert, but as a community resident, a leader in my organization and neighborhood. We feel strongly about supporting NAACP's recommendation and drafts around the redistricting, and ask the committee and councilors to take strong recommendations from neighborhood voices and the considerations being offered in this collective process. We also look forward to hosting neighborhood meetings with residents in D3, D4, and D5 to bring community voices to the center of this work, as we know this will impact our city for the next 10 years. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Everybody's doing a great time with the timer. I also want to recognize that Councillor Tanya Fernandez-Anderson has joined us. Is there anyone else? Okay. Steve Pickford. John Sheckman. And Clerk Maureen Feeney will be on deck for the next.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Co-Chair Worrell, and City Council. My name is John Schneiderman.
Sorry, I
Don't worry about
your name.
it. It happens all the time. It's been happening to me my entire life. I moved to Dorchester from Chelsea 40 years ago, and I married a girl from Dorchester, and I've been here ever since. I've also been the president of the Pope's Hill Neighborhood Association for the last 8 years. I'm not OFD, and I think it's probably the first time anybody got elected to presidency of a neighborhood association. We are a very proud community. When I first became president, I got the chance to work with Frank Baker. And we've collaborated with issues with not with issues, but we've collaborated with Cedar Grove, Port Norfolk, Clam Point, and Frank has always been there for us. So what I'd like to say, I'd like to ask the committee to please reconsider the mapping you have for District 3. I'd like to take a little different approach on this. I'd like to speak about our councilor, okay? Councilor Baker, is one of the longest standing council members, has done nothing but fight for all his constituents over the years. He understands life as a lifelong City of Boston resident, but more importantly, understands life as a long life Dorchester resident. With that, he has adapted his perspectives to adjust to the diversity changes over the years. His transparency on policy changes, the rationale behind said changes, and what it means for Joe Public has been masterclass. I say this as a neighborhood activist who hasn't always seen eye to eye with his position, but acknowledging that the greater good was always his target. But it's how he engaged and took position that made the difference. By difference, I mean between a politician and a statesman, and Frank has evolved in the latter. So if this proposal was based on any empirical data, increasing the size of his district would be the only other choice. So we ask you, I come here on behalf of my neighborhood association, to please consider the taxpayers in the community and keep District 3 intact the way it is. Thank you.
Thank you. I understand Representative Dan Hunt.
I'm happy to let him testify first.
If you don't mind, Maureen, I appreciate he's got some time constraints. Thank you, Representative Hunt, for being here, and you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, Council members. I'll be brief as I've offered written testimony. I'm here as a state representative from Frank Baker's district, but also as the chair of the Ward 16 committee. It should be noted that we have a quorum in this room. And I'm also the state committee person for the 1st Suffolk senatorial district. I will say that I've also was on the committee, on the Special House Committee on Redistricting this last session, and I currently chair the Federal Stimulus and Census Oversight Committee. And through that process, as you are doing now or have done, heard from a number of experts and about legal challenges and the right way to do it. And as Councilor Mejia stated, we have 160 state representatives, and I think I'm the only one that was happy out of that process. Because through the process, obviously things are going to change, and there'll be a little bit of agita. I will say, though, that looking briefly at Councilor Baker's map, it appears that he and his staff in office were able to come up with a map that keeps most of the councilors in their current positions, with only changing a half a dozen or so precincts. I will say as well that as Chairman and President Bickerton stated with the senatorial process that we went through, Ward 16 consulted attorneys as the Senate map included 16, 9, 10, and 12 in Senator Timilty's district. And the attorneys that we spoke with not only thought that there was a difference, obviously, between Dorchester and Milton, but that those 3 precincts have a like-minded and contiguous nature with the citizens from 16, 5, 6, 8, and 11. Collectively, that is the Neponset area. It would be my hope and that you consider that as you deliberate and make sure that Neponset is held whole. And again, I appreciate the ability to speak before you. I didn't want to throw a lot of word soup at you, but I know that you know a lot of this information, and folks that have testified previously have done so more eloquent than myself. So thank you, and have a great evening. Thank you for taking me out of turn.
Thank you, Representative Hunt. Cancel that. Okay. Clerk Feeney, would you like to step up? And you have the floor.
Wonderful. Thank you. It's wonderful to be with you this evening. I thank you for this opportunity.
Clerk Feeney, come a little closer to the microphone so that everyone can hear you.
Imagine people can't hear me. Just ask my kids, they'll tell you. Thank you. I'm just going to read quickly something that I wrote, which I can leave copies of. Good evening. For though most of you know that my name is Maureen Feeney, and I appear before you this evening in support of maintaining Ward 16 with its current boundaries within District 3. Representing this district for 17 years, during which time I served as president of the council and also chair of the 2002 Redistricting Committee, which was challenged and upheld with the support of the NAACP, which was one of the proudest moments I've had in this body. This work that I did gave me a very unique perspective on the historical boundaries of District 3 and those of the rest of the city, really understanding how challenging it is to come up with a map that tries to maintain continuity for each neighborhood. I appreciate the challenges you face in redrawing the city district lines. I commend you on your efforts thus far, as well as we all try to assist you in your work. As you know, equal population, compact districts, contiguous boundaries, and preservation of neighborhoods and communities of interest are also among other necessary considerations. Since its creation in 1983, I think sometimes we forget that these districts were only created such a short time before. That was the first time the districts had been created, 9 districts. But in District 3's southwest border marked a clear and clean political boundary, which, as you know, is a principle of redistricting. Unlike some other cities in the center of the city, District 3 has several intractable boundaries, such as the Atlantic Ocean, the Neponset River, the city of Quincy, the city of Milton, train tracks, and other clearly defined boundaries, such as ward committees, civic associations, and parishes. I know you're not supposed to have any signs on. But in reviewing the map, I have grave concern that the recommended changes to District 3, especially precincts 8 and 11, will tear apart the very fabric of that community without any corresponding benefits. I respectfully request your reconsideration of such dramatic changes to the Dorchester community. I thank you for your time and consideration and the opportunity to share our concerns. I would just add one little, well, I won't get emotional, but 16-8 is also the home of the Richards family, Martin Richards. And, obviously, not just Dorchester, but everyone came together after the bombing. But there was a history before all of that that made this community of Dorchester hold on to each other so dearly. And one of the things was when the MBTA decided they were going to give us a bucket of paint, and that was it. It was Ashmont Adams, along with Cedar Grove Civic, Pope's Hill, Port Norfolk, St. Mark's, all these civic associations that said, you're not doing it to us again. We had people volunteer, architects, and give the plans to the MBTA. We now have a new Ashmont station because the people of Dorchester stood with 16-8. They stood with Ashmont Adams. We're not a community, we're a family. We fight, we don't always get along, we don't always agree, but this is a special place. Just like so many other neighborhoods in the city. My grandparents and my parents grew up in Roxbury, right on Blue Hill Ave. And, I have fond memories of going to St. John's Church and being part of that. I then moved to Franklin Field Housing Project for 15 years. I know Dorchester. I don't want anyone to suffer from this process. But what has been accomplished in this city over all these years is something we should all be proud of, because there aren't many cities as good as we are. Thank you.
Thank you, Clerk Feeney. Thank you. Let's see. Councillor Flaherty, you have the floor.
As a continuum of our last meeting, I was just hoping to hear at some point from our colleagues, the authors of the maps, just to see whether or not they had an opportunity to sharpen their pencils and sharpen their focus on neighborhoods and communities to see if we could reduce the number of precincts that are changing districts, 25, 18, and 17 respectively, and also a charge, I guess, to any colleagues. I know I heard that our colleague, City Councilor Frank Baker from District 3 has a map. If any of our other colleagues have maps, I'd like to get to them as well and give them the same attention that we've given the 3 maps that we're focused on. And with that, I'll truly cede my time to the public. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Flaherty. Let's see, Councillor Flaherty. Councillor Arroyo, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think a lot of the objectives and goals that I have brought into redistricting, as far as sort of the mandate to create true opportunity districts that we are charged with every 10 years, have been eloquently stated by Councillor Mejia and Councillor Louis-Jean and other councillors here today. I am very much interested in making sure that we keep community listening sessions for community, and so I'm going to cede whatever time I have remaining to community testimony. I just want to say thank you to the community that has come out to be heard. I think it's incredibly important that we do that, and my hope is this is clearly not the last community listening session, so in the future that folks who were unable to make it here today and are watching this on repeat, or folks who are here and have people who express a desire to be heard, recommend and encourage them to engage in this process as we continue to go forward. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Vice Chair Worrell.
Thank you, Councillor Arroyo. We're going to take some virtual testimony now. President Anisha Sullivan from the NAACPs, you have the floor. You have the floor.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Madam Chair, Sir Vice Chair, for the opportunity to be with you this evening. I greatly appreciate certainly the responsiveness to the concerns we've previously raised about increasing the transparency of these listening sessions and the redistricting working sessions, and greatly appreciate the last few being accessible virtually to residents across the city of Boston. I think that is critically important. And again, just want to thank you for your attentiveness to those concerns. I also want to thank you for bringing Professor Weiss into these conversations. I appreciate the legal guidance that he provided at the top of the meeting, and also the cultural guidance that he provided in his overview, and look forward to, again, having him and others as a part of this process. I really just want to just lift up in this moment the critical importance of us to continue to listen to one another with open ears and open mind about what this redistricting process requires us to do, yes, but also what this redistricting process presents us with an opportunity to do. As someone who has deep family legacy and roots in the city of Boston, having seen and experienced a great deal of the transformation in this city, albeit slow process of growth, I would argue, I am encouraged by the opportunity that we find ourselves with in this moment. And in that spirit, We, as an organization, the NAACP, alongside many other community organizations and community stakeholders, have been working to compile, to draft a redistricting map that is truly reflective of one Boston with 9 districts. And one that continues to help us move forward, yes. One that is compliant with the Voting Rights Act, yes. And one that does take into deep consideration the desire of certain communities to stay whole. And we look forward to continuing that work and look forward to having an opportunity to share it with the city in the coming days. Thank you again, Madam Chair and Sir Vice Chair, for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Next up, we'll take John Lyons, followed by Ruth Wang.
Madam Chair, as John's coming down, my map was 10 moves. To answer Council Flaherty, my map was 10 moves. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Welcome, sir. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members, for allowing me to speak. I brought my own map, which is the 1874 version of Ward 16. Dorchester, as we all know, was annexed by the City of Boston in 1870. But even in 1874, the boundaries, as Councilor Feeney pointed out, and I believe Attorney DeCara, were already set based upon physical geography and infrastructure. The Old Colony Railroad came into Dorchester in 1868, and it's always been a collection of villages, but the collection of villages along the Neponset River and along Dorchester Bay, as far as Commercial Point, have always been a community of common interest. Now, the names and the faces have changed radically since 1874. It was primarily an agrarian town, primarily occupied by Yankee farmers and business people with primarily water-dependent uses. But it remains a collection of villages. Most of the things I was going to say have already been said, so I won't repeat myself and use up your time. I do agree with what the 2 councilors said about how difficult this process is. There are many competing interests, and there are valid claims by many groups in the city to be recognized and to have adequate representation. I am the president of the Port Norfolk Civic Association. We're a small neighborhood. I can tell you at last count we have 280 mailboxes. I know that because I've knocked on the doors, I've leafleted many times through the years. We are a cohesive community, this end of Dorchester, but we're not as homogenous as everyone seems to think we are. When I knock on doors, I encounter immigrants from Haiti, Poland, Puerto Rico, Ireland. Did I say Poland? And Haiti. So, and we also elected and re-elected the first Haitian-born member of the Massachusetts Senate. We honestly don't care what someone looks like, where they come from, what language they speak, what church they go to, or whether or not they go to church. What we care about is what kind of people they are. The newcomers in Port Norfolk are here because they're attracted to the quality of life in the neighborhood. They've embraced living in the community. They've been embraced by their neighbors. And I think that's true throughout Dorchester. I think it is unfair to lop off this one little corner of Dorchester for the sake of meeting population concerns when there is a much more important concern about preserving the community of common interest. What Ward 16 in this corner has now is the new DCR Neponset Greenway. And someone mentioned that as well, I believe John O'Toole. I personally participated in the 30-year work to get that built. And in the course of doing that and working with the Neponset Greenway Council, I had friendships with people from Savin Hill, Clam Point, Neponset, Cedar Grove, but also Mattapan, Hyde Park, and Milton. And that's something that never would have happened without the people working together in this community. This is not about divisiveness, it's about working together. But this community is distinctive in some ways, and I think it really does need to remain as it's presently aligned. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up, Beth. Beth, you have the floor.
Great. Good evening, everyone. My name is Beth Huang, and I'm the director of the Massachusetts Voter Table. We work with community organizations across Boston and across the state to increase civic engagement and representation. First, I want to share who the Drawing Democracy Coalition is and what our goals are. We came together in 2020 and 2021 to draw more representative maps at the state level, and we were hoping to do the same at the city level. And we also largely participated in the Mass Counts Coalition to get out the count in the 2020 census. We have two overarching goals. The first is that every opportunity district, so every district that has over 50% plus one population of people of color, presents a good chance for a person of color to represent that district, and that voters have a fair chance of electing a candidate of choice. The second is that BIPOC communities that are currently divided by district lines can be reunited and preserve their political power. The current city council districts divide Mattapan, Upham's Corner, Grove Hall, Bowdoin Geneva, Fields Corner, and Mission Hill. I appreciate questions but also challenge notions about keeping historical districts how they are. Yes, there are reasons for grouping districts in the way that they currently are grouped, but sometimes these districts do ingrain long-standing inequities and long-term segregations. And so a few notes that and impressions that we have on the maps that have been filed, which I know are very difficult to draw. So the first is our notes on Councillor Murphy's map is that we see an over-concentration of people of color in District 4. There are many ways to draw District 4 that do not overpack people of color into a district that then only contains 6.2% white people. And given patterns of racially polarized voting, it seems clear that drawing District 4 in this way overpacks black and brown voters at the expense of representation of people of color in neighboring districts. On the second map, presented by Councilors Fernandez and Arroyo, and also on the maps presented by Councilors Braden and Worrell, in general, we believe that these maps achieve many of the coalition's goals, but we do have a few concerns here and there. So on the map presented by Councilor Fernandez and Arroyo, our main concern is that we see the division of the South End and Chinatown Chinese communities that we heard quite a bit about in the previous hearing. And then in the map presented by Chair Braden and Vice Chair Worrell, we see overall this is a decent balance, but we do see that Districts 1, 2, and 8 are a bit overpopulated, and given trends of development in these areas, we believe that not just in 10 years, but much sooner, these will become overpopulated. So thank you for this chance to testify, and we look forward to staying involved in this process.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. I'll just swing back. Councillor Fernandez-Anderson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councillor Fernandez-Anderson here. I wanted to just ask some questions, and I apologize for being late. Can you clarify for us, or for those watching at home, what is the mandate or what are we required by law in terms of considering current city councilors in their residence or in their district?
I think if you have legal questions, you missed the presentation by legal counsel. If you have legal questions, you send them to us and we'll take them to legal counsel. And this is really focused on public testimony, so I don't want to get into a back and forward conversation with you. It's not we can do that in a working session.
Madam Chair, I appreciate you setting the tone as a listening session. It would bring clarity for the listening session. This session is essentially for the public. And so with all due respect, my clarification is to stage the premises to which my point was going to end on. But I wanted to just clarify for the public, then I'll say it, that we don't have a mandate to actually consider counselors. We have a mandate to consider first priority building opportunity districts. And then the other point I think is that we need to be very clear about the process itself. I think that a lot of folks are coming up with, opinions or solutions or different maps. I'm not sure if Councilor Baker's map, I heard that he's proposed a map, was presented here today or when. I would like to see it. And then I would say there's another map. I guess my questions for the public. That's what I am here for, Madam Chair, is to represent my constituents, to ensure that the information gets to them. That if we are talking about the map proposed by the NAACP and other community members, did we present that here, or will we be presenting that there? Again, I apologize for coming in
We
late.
didn't present any maps. Councillor Baker indicated that he has a map that he'd like to share. He will bring that to our next working session, which will be publicly accessible, be televised, and that's when we will discuss any further additions. The focus of this afternoon's hearing is to really take public testimony, and that's where we're at with the...
Well, in that case, thank you, District 7 constituents and all of my beautiful people. I see the Asian community up there, and thank you, Dorchester, for coming out. I really do appreciate the idea of keeping communities together as someone of faith. I think that it's a beautiful thought, and I will highly keep that in mind in our process. And I thank you for taking the time, Clerfini, very nice seeing you. And thank you all for being here, for testifying. So if we're not doing any more, then I guess I won't go back and forth with you, Madam Chair. So I appreciate I appreciate you indulging me. I had like an hour back and forth to go.
Thank you. I appreciate your flexibility and giving preeminence to our guests in the chamber this afternoon.
Thank you so much.
Let's see. Next up, Senator Diane Wilkerson. And then that will be followed by Eric Estevez. Senator Wilkerson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee, and the public present and virtual. For the record, my name is Diane Wilkerson. I do want to say, actually, a resident of Roxbury, more specifically, a resident of District 8-5. So for people who think that the entire District 3 is in Dorchester, I live in District 3 in Roxbury. It happens the way the lines are drawn that the neighbors across the street from me are in a different district. They're in D7. My point is this: no matter what we say and no matter how emotional we are, the lines have to start and end somewhere. And so that is our reality. This is the situation that we have to deal with right now. We are landlocked, we have an ocean on the seaport side, right? That happens to be the neighborhood that is overpopulated. We had the exact opposite situation in our legislative maps, where the growth in the state population was in Western Mass, and it pushed all of us over and changed our lines. And so for those of you who think that this is something new that you're being asked to do, Nubian Square is in fact represented by 2 different state reps. That happens. It happens all over the city. In 1992, when I moved into the building called Douglas Park, the side of the building, the hallway that I lived in, was in the 2nd Suffolk District. If you took a left in my hallway in the same district, in the same building, you walked into the 1st Suffolk District. Senator Bulger and I shared the same building at the time. And so don't anybody think that this is some crazy thing we're asking people to do. The lines have to start and end somewhere. The reality is we get so used to in this city, Councilor Mejia was absolutely right, the issue of race has been such a high trigger for us that we don't know how to talk about it. We know all the ways in which we argue that we can't use it. The reality is that redistricting, by order of law, by order of the 14th Amendment, is the one area where we are duty-bound to use race and then language minorities as the major tenet of the exercise of redistricting. And so when we start talking about drawing maps, or I think the representative described the councilor's map as a map keeping all the councilors in their district. Councilor Fernandez Anderson, I can answer you that question. There is absolutely no legal, not only requirement, but if you walked into a court with a map that you said that the major focus was to keep all the incumbents in place, it would be stricken on its face at that very moment. That is not how we do it. It's not how it will get done. But I think that there's still some opportunities here. I know we've just talked about it a little bit, but we do have a map that we've put together and taken into all account all of the issues that we can. I think that the parishes, I think that Dorchester, I think you're going to be surprised as what we've come up with, because we heard you, even though that religion is one of the things you can look at. It is hardly a priority. The bottom line is that the process is one where everybody can't have what they... I am only testifying because I heard so many people come to the mic and say, keep it the way it is. You have to know we can't do that. We can't do that. We've got to move the lines because we have 14,000 more people. So can't keep all the, got to go into South Boston because the District 2 is the one that has the most people over. And so you can't keep everybody on the South End part and the South Boston part. Somebody's got to move 13,000, 14,000 people. And so as that happens, everybody shifts to the West. And we have to be prepared for that. And I think we're going to insist that we do it in a way that is responsive to the Voting Rights Act, the 14th Amendment. Some people will be happy, some won't, but we'll do what's right. We will do what's right. The city has changed. It's not the same as it was 40 years ago, 30 years ago, 20 years ago. And we're going to find that out in this process. And so I thank you for the work that you have done, for the willingness to work with all of us, to kind of getting to a place where we think we can get the most support, because I think it's there. I'm confident it's there, and I thank this committee for allowing us an opportunity to address you today.
Thank you, Senator. Eric Estevez, you have the floor.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Eric Estevez. I live in Roxbury in 9-5. And I can't freestyle, so I took some notes. But thank you, Senator Wilkerson, for saying some of the things I was planning to say as well. But again, 10 years ago, I testified at this same hearing. We were part of a coalition focused on fulfilling the intent of the Voting Rights Act. And at the time, our demands were simple: to re-precinct the entire city, to not crack District 3, and to unpack District 4. So 2 for 3 is a decent average, but not good enough. So on the matter of compactness and contiguousness, I don't think re-precincting did its full job. It was done in a way that I think still failed to live up to its intended purpose and could have been a lot more thorough and comprehensive in addressing the natural borders of major thoroughfares throughout the city. I think a lot of the pain and worry people are expressing is a direct result of inadequate building blocks, which is why re-precincting is so important. Like this year and a decade ago, there are several map options that are on the table up for consideration in your working sessions, some of which dilute the voting power of people of color and communities of interest who fall under the purview of the Voting Rights Act. Several of those maps moved forward 10 years ago and were subsequently vetoed by the then mayor because they failed to meet much of the redistricting criteria. I asked that the council give full consideration to all of the competing priorities, but you have a thankless job because a fact of life is that you can't make everyone happy. But some of the city council districts with citizen voting age populations that are predominantly people of color have in fact shifted in their demographic makeup. I actually take the most heed to the unintended consequences of overly diluting voting blocks, and also pay attention to how some voting blocks have historically dominated municipal elections in certain districts. In fact, Dorchester has been historically divided into at least 3 city council districts, as Senator Wilkinson just alluded to, since 1984. And in fact, the reason for the 9 districts nearly 40 years ago was a direct result of the unfair and inequitable way that citywide council elections had taken shape for many years prior that prevented a large part of the city from electing candidates of their choice. This conversation is certainly bigger than Dorchester. It's bigger than Roxbury. You know, nobody even talks about Hyde Park. And I don't even live in Hyde Park. I live in Roxbury. But I used to live in Hyde Park. I used to live in Dorchester. I used to live in Rosendale. I used to live in JP. So I feel like I know the city very well. But lastly, I also would say, you know, to Councilor Fernandez-Anderson's point is that, you know, it probably is not one up for consideration, but an independent body is something that always is recommended for redistricting processes, so that we leave out of the conversation of whether we're gaining this precinct, we're losing this precinct. It's really about the citizens and the voters throughout the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Next, we're going to take someone on virtual testimony, Fatima alayhi salam.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you. You have the floor. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. My name is Fatima Al-Islam. I'm the current chair for the Greater Mattapan Neighborhood Council. I reside in my home almost 22 years in Ward 18, Precinct 4 in Mattapan. Where I live is right on the border of Hyde Park. It moves along what is called the Neponset Greenway. The importance of it, I've heard from earlier testimony in regards to those who reside, and I can respect that, who worked hard on the development of the Neponset Greenway in the parts of Cedar Grove. There also are plenty of residents and community groups within Mattapan who also work diligently on the development of the Neponset Greenway, going from Mattapan Square over the Harvest Bridge. Tirelessly and continue to do so. One of the reasons that I wanted to speak today is to ensure that it is understood that Mattapan and the effects of what has happened over the decades of redistricting can actually have on my community. My community historically has received some of the lowest dollar amounts in capital budget coming directly to residents, whether they were voting or non-voting, and the importance of paying attention to what you say and do and who representation is. As Councilor Louisiane aptly said, it is not about ensuring anyone currently is filling a seat. It is about the residents in the city of Boston. As a community of majority Black community, we have the highest rate of Black homeownership. What we've seen over the different voting periods is that we've both lost and gained voting power. We've seen our districts split up, which in some ways is good. We now have 2 councilors of color that represent Mattapan. We have also seen through the creation of the Greater Mattapan Neighborhood Council representation where we also get to advocate for our neighbors, our communities surrounding us, because Mattapan is unique in the consideration that we have the center of surrounded by 4 separate neighborhoods: Hyde Park, Rosendale, Jamaica Plain, and Roxbury. And Dorchester. One of the things, though, that I keep hearing over and over again is a little concerning, is that there is always the importance of the Voting Rights Act is preeminent in this discussion. And I I really do worry that the dilution and the minutia, that people get lost in it. And that at the center of it is not the idea that we are only temporary on this earth, all of us, and that the lines which we are drawing are mainly to serve a purpose of equity and nothing else. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, and I'm just looking at my long list of folks that have been here and sat here all afternoon. I did have the intention of giving you all a stretch break at one stage, but I forgot about that. And I have one more person on the list, Samuel Pierce. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to the councilors and everybody else who's testified before me. I think that one of the things we need to think about is that it's taken 100 years for us to get to this point as far as us redistricting and also redrawing the wards and precincts. So much so that it's actually become detrimental to actually run for office. On or about the week of February 15th, I had decided I was going to run for office after receiving over 8,000 votes 2 years ago. Some of that district included Ward 16, where I would actually agree with many of the testimony here today. A lot of the people who testified are also friends of mine, and many of which voted for me. And I know that Dorchester is a melting pot, just like Roxbury, just like Mattapan, just like all of the 9 districts here in Boston. I don't think that we have to separate or segregate as we ensure that the lines of the districts become whole and concise to what people are looking to see take place. What we do need to do is make sure that the City Council uses its authority to ensure that the election department has a clear understanding of what the wards and precincts are in Boston. And so that people interested in possibly joining you or replacing you have the ability to do so, not because the council or the legislature has self-appointed itself through backdoor deals or difficult to understand language. And so I want to be very clear that after getting 759 signatures when you only need 150, going back and forth with the election department because, you know, Tweedledee and Tweedledum couldn't figure out what the districts and the wards are, I actually hold this council responsible for not doing its job and making sure that the Secretary of State and the election commissioners and the general public are aware of what the districts are, what the wards and precincts are. There's only 22 wards in Boston. There's only 9 district councilors, 17 in total. I think it's very important that as we continue this conversation, we also acknowledge the fact that we need more time. This is not something that we can rush through, especially since all of you gave yourselves a raise. And so I think that the people deserve our money's worth. And so that being said, in order to get our money's worth, we want to make sure that there's enough time in all of the different districts so that each district has a chance to voice its opinion. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. This is the last call. Anyone has an urgent need to say anything? Okay. I really want to sincerely thank everyone who's taken the time to come here this afternoon and make their testimony and listen to others make theirs. This is an ongoing process. Unfortunately, it is a truncated process. The last time we did this, we worked on it for 18 months. So I appreciate everyone leaning in and joining the conversation. And we will continue to work diligently over the next 3 weeks to see that we get this project across the finish line to deliver a defendable map to the mayor and to have it signed off and voted on. So we will continue to work. We will continue to keep talking and listening, most especially listening. And I want to thank you all for being here this afternoon. Did you have anything? Thank you. This meeting is adjourned.